All sorts of studies show that most Americans are unhappy at work. In fact, we're less happy with our jobs than workers in most of the rest of the developed world. By the way, doesn't it make you wonder how happy the people are who do all those studies? Anyway, big surprise, but it's even worse for New Yorkers, most of whom are already stressed about paying for those small and expensive homes they live in.
Since the start of 2014, the unemployment rate in the city has dropped nearly 3 percentage points to 5.4%, but the improving economy has coincided with only a marginal increase in job satisfaction. Interviews with New Yorkers found them working longer days for pay that has not kept up with the cost of living here. So, some advised either change what you do, easier said than done, right? Or change how you do it. The last part is what our next guest can offer. Some things you can do that can make that job a lot less frustrating. Let's welcome Devin Bandison, a life coach and leadership expert. Devin, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Greg and
You're
Melody.
inspiring
Pleasure.
just meeting you in the hallway, I swear.
Well, thank you.
We want to get into the specifics of everything and, the jobs that you do, but let's start with the general place. How can people start to make themselves happier at work?
Yeah, I think, when I work with people, it's this change and shift from thinking you need to always be happy to really satisfied and fulfilled. A funny thing, on the way here, there was train delays, and I was sitting on the train, delayed to get here for the interview, and about 90% of the people on the train were sucking their teeth, frustrated, and I thought to myself, what's the likelihood they're going to have a happy day at work? So what I work with people on is really creating a life where they're showing up powerfully, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, to be the best version of themselves they can be. So,
That's great. What is a leadership expert?
Well, I've had many years of training and seminars. I teach people how to be the best leader they can be. And when I think of leadership, I don't think of people's title or positions. Leadership to me is about influence. You have parents who are leaders, you have business owners, you have employees who can show up and have influence on other people. So for me, I teach people how they can show up powerfully and influence in a positive way.
Okay, so you're mentioning showing up a lot and what we bring to it. Are there other factors that make people unhappy at work that you're finding?
Well, absolutely. So I work with people individually, but I also go into organizations to try to change the culture. To me, a good day at work starts the night before. I think we look at the habits and the routines that people do as well as the mindset. Right. So for instance, I was at a job where I was training a lot of people. I loved it. I was coaching before I became a coach, a big nonprofit in New York. And I got promoted, a lot more money, but none of the same responsibilities. And I was miserable. And I ran into this whole victim mentality. You guys may have heard of the victim language. The victim language goes like this. Just trying to get through the day.
Tell me about it.
Right? Just, Monday they're saying, just trying to get through Friday.
Right.
On Friday, it's thank God it's Friday. And what I realized was when I created my business to create a coaching program for people to be able to show up. So what does that mean? Look at your mindset and see you can take ownership of your fulfillment, your satisfaction at work and at home. What are the habits and routines that you may need to change? So everything from putting out your clothes the night before to having a morning routine to putting on something that maybe helps you feel good as you go through your day. But also the other thing is productivity. Productivity, busyness doesn't mean more productive. And if people are more productive, they have more time to do the things they value. So I often say to people, if I can get you back an hour in your day, would you know what to do with it? Many people don't. Think about it. The last time you had an hour meeting, it was taken off the calendar. What do?
I don't know.
You go into your default and say, I got a free hour, right? And then you say, well, maybe I'll check my phone, maybe I'll walk around, and you lose that hour, and then you wonder why you're not getting home to your family on time. So I work on those things.
That's great. And your positivity really rubs off. I mean, I feel it. Melody, do you feel this?
Yeah, I'm already having a better day at work.
I mean, I hear a lot, be more productive, be more positive. I hear that a lot, but how can we do those things? What are the tips to, say, being more, not positive or productive?
Yeah, it's not about always just being positive. It's about systems as well.
Yeah.
So I look at what are your habits and routines that are preventing you from showing up. And most productive people, most people who are fulfilled at work, do more before 10 a.m. than most people do all day.
Is it true like the early bird gets the worm? Am I right?
It is true.
Go on.
It is true. So I have something in the, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example, a morning routine called the power hour, where the first part.
That usually involves drinking.
No.
Go on, Devin. I'm sorry.
And it's a
What's the power
combination
hour?
of really you getting centered in the P stands for peace, just a peace of mind when you first get up.
Do you meditate?
I do meditate.
Okay, go on.
And then there's openness, where there's free journaling and some affirmations that I do. And then the W is the who, what, and why. Who needs me today? What do I need to do? Why am I going to do what I'm about to do? And what I realized was the only people that really are on the who needs me every day are my children. And that allows me to see who I need to show up differently for every day. The E stands for exercise, some movement in the morning, and then the R is reading. Anyone who takes a morning commute has an opportunity to read all the headlines in the paper, which probably won't have you in a great mood, or do something, or read a book, or listen to a podcast that'll put you in a better mood. So
Listen to somebody else read you something.
that's right.
That counts.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, to me, morning rituals are important, but then when you get to work, what are you doing with your time? And I've been able to go in with people, see how they work, and see how they can become more productive. People like to be attached to something. When I saw you in the green room, I said, well, what is the goal behind the goal? What's the big goal? And when people feel like they're working towards something, they show up differently. So that's the other thing that I help teach people. And thirdly are your influencers. You're going to be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You go out with 5 people who are miserable at work, and you come to work, more than likely you may be miserable. You're around.
Especially if you're hanging out with them then after work.
That's right. That's right. So, you know, I had a client who, for instance, went and had her law degree, but didn't pass the bar exam. And because of fear of going back to the bar exam, she went into teaching. And 10 years went by. She was only going to go into teaching for 1 year. 10 years went by, and she was miserable at her job. She hired me, and we started working together, and we started looking at how she can create a space in her life to use her law degree without getting passing the test yet. So what she did was she created a practice on the side where she helped businesses get their LLCs. And as she started coming into her purpose, into her own, what she's passionate about, she started showing up differently at her job. So the side job became very successful. Now she's showing up at work and loves being a teacher again, and she's re-energized and rejuvenated. And she's set to take the bar exam in a few weeks.
You mentioned the subway already, which I know is a big thing, but why else are New Yorkers, do you think, unhappier than everybody else at their jobs?
I think it's a few things. New Yorkers, where the hustle and bustle, there's really no time to have space and that quiet time for yourself. And I think that self-care goes a long way. And when we're always running to the next appointment, to the late train, sometimes that puts us in a space that we need to make sure that we build in self-care every day.
So what is the concept of hacking your job? Is it all about this kind of power hour and attitude that you take into every day?
Well, I think it's being more productive, but I also think it's how you're choosing to take care of yourself. It's the old metaphor when you're on the plane, right? If something happens on the plane, the oxygen mask come down, you have to put it on yourself before you put it on someone else. So if you want to show up and be a better parent, a better colleague, a better TV host, you really have to take care of yourself first.
Let's talk about that, being a better parent. You talk a lot about fatherhood as leadership.
Yes.
You're a national voice on that, basically. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so when I was big into leadership development, and I also have 3 beautiful children, and I did a TED Talk called Fatherhood is Leadership, and it goes into what I've learned about leadership, about being about influence. Not about do as I say, not as I do, but how my actions and how my example can be an example for my children. Early on in my career, I developed fatherhood programs throughout New York City that got national recognition. And then now I coach fathers throughout the world, and I do speaking around the world on fatherhood and leadership. To me, I have a lot of accolades, but if I fail at fatherhood, I failed at everything.
But I'd imagine some of the same principles that you speak about can relate to single guys without any kids, right?
It totally relates, Greg. It totally relates. I mean, how do you want to show up in the world? We talk about this a lot.
Right.
So for me, is my walk matching my talk? If what I've set as a vision for my life, am I waking up and being that? I have ownership of my life. I'm the owner of my life. I'm not a victim of my circumstance.
Right.
The train today, it was late. I could have stayed on the train, sucked my teeth like 90% of the people on the train. I pulled out my journal. I made 2 phone calls, text messages, and I scheduled something with my daughter. So.
I feel the energy coming off of you. This Power Hour morning is going to change my life.
Yes.
Before we have to let you go, where can people find out more about you and your website and your things like that?
Yes, I'm all over social media. My website's devinbanderson.com. If people are interested in my coaching, they can just email me at devin@devinbanderson.com, and I'm also on Twitter.
Wow, Devin Banderson.
Wonderful.
I've met a few life coaches in my time, but you give off all the energy that goes along with it. Thank you very much for being here
Thanks,
on BRIC
Greg.
Live.
Thank
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you too.
Melody,
Thank
keep
you
up the
so
good
much,
work.
Devin.